What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. This is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to talk about the Toronto Raptors because they are in one of the most unique situations in the NBA right now, having elected to not trade Kyle Lowry at the deadline, and also having, quite a bit of young talent on this team. They obviously lost Kawhi after their championship run a couple of years ago. And so they're kind of stuck in between two eras right now where they're still a pretty good roster and they've been competitive for a very long time. But they also might have to do sort of a soft rebuild. So I kind of wanted to talk about Toronto and their next couple of years and what this season has been like for them. So the first thing that I've noticed, and this is kind of what inspired me to make this video, honestly, is Gary Trent Jr. and how well he's been playing for them. He's been awesome since he's got there, about a week or two ago from the NBA trade deadline. And he's just been killing it. They've given him, a lot of opportunity. He's been getting a lot of minutes and a lot of shot opportunities, and he's made the most of it. He hit a game winner tonight to beat the Wizards, a three-pointer to win the game, and he's just been really, really awesome for them. And I was thinking about this when they made the trade. If I'm Gary Trent, I've had about as perfect a start to my NBA career as you could possibly ask for, because he gets drafted by Portland, gets to play there for a couple of years, learn behind two of the best guards in the league, obviously in Dame Lillard and CJ. Not a ton of pressure on him to produce right away as a second-round pick and also on a team with two-star guards on it already. He gets his opportunity, comes in, plays really well, spends a couple of years learning behind some really, really good players, and then gets traded to the Raptors. Immediately gets more opportunity and gets to continue his development under one of the best development staffs in the entire league. We know that the Raptors have a knack for finding players out of the G League and developing young talent and maximizing young players. And so Gary Trent going to Toronto after spending a couple years with Portland is a perfect situation for any young guard in the league. I would just be ecstatic if I was him, because he's been put in the perfect situation to succeed, and he's done it. So far in his career, he's been amazing. He's well performed, well outperformed expectations, that were on him as a second-round pick. He's been an awesome player, and he's going to get paid in the offseason. He's going to be a free agent. The Raptors, I would assume, are probably going to attempt to retain him, and so in restricted free agency, we'll see how much he ends up getting, but he's playing himself into a really, really nice contract, and he's got a bright future ahead of him in the NBA. I really, really like Gary Trent, and so that was a win of a move, made by the Raptors at the deadline. The Norman Powell thing, I think it makes sense for both sides to do what they did. I kind of did a more in-depth breakdown of this trade, a while ago, but I think it makes sense for both sides to do what they did, and I really like the Gary Trent acquisition, and I think that it's just another young piece and another victory for this Raptors front office. But really the biggest question for the Raptors right now is what to do with Kyle Lowry, because they had the opportunity to trade him at the deadline and they didn't end up doing it. They had a couple of deals on the table and nothing that they really liked, and so chose to hold on to him at the very last moment. And so he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He's 35 years old, and so he could potentially be on a different team. He obviously means a lot to the city and to the franchise, so they might end up bringing him back anyway, but who knows, right? That's a question for the offseason, or they could work out a sign and trade or whatever happens, right? So Lowry is really the bridge from the old era into the new one, because he's one of the carryovers from their title roster. Obviously, they still have quite a few players left over from that team still around, most notably like Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, who are all kind of part of the younger generation of Raptors. But Lowry is obviously getting up there in age, and it might make sense to move off of him at some point, especially given the emergence of Trent along with Fred VanVleet obviously playing super well, and he's now signed long term. So those are two guys who could easily be your guard, your starting guard spots for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so you might not necessarily need Kyle Lowry. So maybe you just let him walk in free agency and end up, rocking out with his young core. And that's really the question that the Raptors have to ask themselves is, do we want to kind of try to take maybe this season and the next year maybe, and maybe the year after that, who knows how long it'll be, right? But sort of try to retool this roster around some of their younger guys that they have now, because previously, the title core was around DeRozan and Lowry, and then they did the Kawhi Leonard trade, and that worked out very well for them, of course. So then it was Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry, and Siakam kind of came on that season as well. And then, Leonard leaves, and it becomes Kyle Lowry and OG Anunoby and Siakam and Van Vliet. And now, they're in this scenario where they might end up losing Lowry. OG Anunoby has developed quite nicely, and he's signed long-term. Siakam has sort of taken a step back compared to where he was maybe last year, and, prior to the bubble, like last regular season, he was playing really well, and then the bubble hit, and he wasn't super good and kind of struggled this year as well. And then Fred Van Vliet, who is now also signed long-term and has been, been playing well for the past couple of seasons. So they have this weird core of guys, and they're kind of all separated in age. So if you do get rid of Lowry, the question is the core of Siakam, Van Vliet, and Anunoby, along with Gary Trent and maybe Chris Boucher and whatever other young guys you have, is that core good enough to really contend for a title? Or do we want to try to get some draft picks, maybe tank for a year or two, and see if we can find the next star? And all of our guys are still young enough to potentially try to contend whenever that guy's ready. So they have a big question on their hands. And as far as this year goes, I think the Raptors are tanking at this point, as much as they may not want to admit it. The team is 20-30 right now, and they recently came out of a stretch where they lost 13 of 14 games. Had a big losing streak. They had one win in the middle of a big losing streak, basically. They've now won 2 in a row. They played well their past couple of games, but really they have lost a lot of games in a row. And with the amount of talent on this roster, and as well run as they are, and I think they're well coached also, losing 13 of 14 is not. They didn't do that on. That wasn't a mistake, in my opinion, at least. I think they kind of looked at the climate of the Eastern Conference and said, okay, I think we're going to try to just shut it down for the year. We're playing in Tampa anyway, not in front of our home fans, and we're going to be there through the rest of the season. And so I think it's just in the best interest of the team to try to, finish out the year and not play super well and see what you can do in terms of the draft. And so I think what we're going to see over the rest of the season is the Raptors kind of playing it very cautiously with injuries, maybe, shutting some guys down early, and really try to tank for the rest of the season. I think they've made that decision at this point. They're not going to come out and say it, and, obviously no team comes out and says that they're outright tanking. But I think the Raptors are kind of secretly hoping to lose a lot of games the rest of the year, because they're only one game behind the Bulls for the play-in spot, so theoretically they could get up there and make some noise, because the Eastern Conference is so close that they could maybe get up there and get up into the 8 or 7 spot or whatever if they make a run. But I think it's probably worth more to them to try to get a draft pick, because like I said, they really need another star to add to this core. They have a lot of really good players on this team, but they don't really have that guy. Obviously Kawhi Leonard was that guy that took them to the title, but he's not there anymore. And if Lowry's gone, then you got a lot of great players. Like I said, Anunoby is one of the best role players in the league. Gary Trent's a really good guard. Van Vliet's a really good guard. Siakam is, has made a couple of all-star teams. I think maybe only one all-star team. But he's, one of those borderline all-star guys. Same with Van Vliet. So they've got a lot of good players, but they don't really have that superstar, right? So maybe if they get some lottery luck, then that could potentially be the way that they obtain that. But I think this team is going to make some moves. I don't think they're done. Obviously the trade deadline's passed now, but I think this offseason the Raptors are probably going to be pretty aggressive in terms of finding a direction and committing to that. Would not be surprised to see Siakam on a new team. I know that sounds kind of crazy considering he, just recently signed an extension on his rookie deal. But he's had some clashes with the coaching staff and with the front office. And has not been super good the past year or so. He has not looked like the same guy that he was last year. When I think he was all NBA last season. So this year he has not been super great. And maybe they could find a new home for him. I think he could still have some value on the market. I don't know. That's just throwing that out there. Maybe Siakam needs a new home. But they like I said, they've got a lot of good pieces for this core. And I think Masai Ujiri is a very good GM, and he knows what he's doing, so I think he'll figure out the best way to maximize this roster. But I think that's about all I have to say on the Toronto Raptors. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about the Raptors and what their direction might be over the next year or so. Would love to hear your thoughts. But yeah, with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.